Time now to debate some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have State Representatives Corey Malloy and Carol Spackman-Moss. Great to have both of you on the show. Let's get right into the first topic, and that is SCOTUS back in session. Representative Spackman-Moss, let's start with you. Coming off a term with some very controversial rulings as SCOTUS gets back to work, how are Democrats feeling in general as this new term begins?
I think many Democrats are concerned about the upcoming issues that they might be dealing with because they could take away rights that people have had for many, many years. And one of them has to do with racial makeup of colleges like Harvard, North Carolina, and reconsidering what has been known as affirmative action. So that's one they're concerned about. The other one is taking away rights from LGBTQ individuals.
All right, we'll dig into those a little bit more in just a second. But first, Representative Malloy, how are Republicans feeling as this new term gets underway?
Well, I think overall, I think Republicans are okay with the makeup of the court. And I think a lot of the issues that the court will be looking at are going to be looked at the way our justices have looked at them, and hopefully they'll do their job and do it well and have the integrity that's always been on the court. And I know there's concerns with some of the makeup and things like that, but we always need to remember too that the court is made up of appointed justices from the President of the United States, whoever the president is at the time. And they have a job to do, and they're not elected officials. So we need to remember to try and keep the politics out of the court, I think, and just respect the process and respect the justices. One
interesting thing that happened right at the get-go on day one, the justices declining to take up a lawsuit from Utah Shooting Sports Council and Clark Opposition to overturn the federal ban on bump stocks. Representative Spackman-Moss, what do you make of that move from the Supreme Court?
Well, I was pleased that they declined to take up that case, and I can't believe that we'd want to ban. That ban was done during the Trump administration. In fact, it was something President Trump said he was going to do. And when the man in Las Vegas shot 1,000 rounds in 10 minutes, killing 58 people, I don't see how a person of conscience could think that that device would be a good thing for the general public to have.
As pointed out, this was a Trump-era executive order. Representative Malloy, your thoughts on how the court essentially ruled on this?
Well, I think overall it's disappointing. It had been going through the process to come before the Supreme Court for a few years, and then it was dropped. But I think that's the prerogative of the court. They dropped a lot of other cases as well. And I think the bump stocks aside, it leads to a much broader issue, and that is the rulemaking of the executive branch when they do executive orders, as well as some of our federal agencies who decide to create rules and enforce rules that are not necessarily put in place by the legislature. So I think that's a bigger rule, or bigger issue, and I think down the road we're going to see that come up in other areas besides, potentially this one versus others. So.
All right, Representative Spackman-Moss, you already alluded to two of the big issues you will be watching in affirmative action and LGBTQ plus rights. What's at stake here as this new term is now officially underway?
Well, one that I didn't mention has to do with elections being handled exclusively by the states, election rights. And this is a big concern too, because I think it gives states more ability to gerrymander, and that's a concerning thing. So I'll be looking at particularly things related to elections, and there's another one about people of color, particularly black individuals whose district may no longer be able to have a minority congressional district, and this is likely to disenfranchise a lot of minority people.
Representative Malloy, what are some other big issues you are specifically keeping an eye on?
I think the issues related to the EPA that they're going to be looking at, and some of these other issues, redistricting is one. And I think these are all fair topics for the Supreme Court to look at when they come before the Supreme Court. And that's the role of the Supreme Court, is to look at these things and see if they are constitutional or not, and make sure all the rights of all people are protected as it relates to the Constitution of the United States as determined by the Supreme Court.
All right, both of you brought up redistricting, so let's dig into that a little bit more. What would you like to see the court do and why? Representative Spackman-Moss.
I don't know specifically what they could do, but it would certainly be a benefit for Utah to have some more requirements. For example, right in my new district in Mill Creek, the corner of 39th South and 900 East is the convergence of the 4 congressional districts. Call it the 4 corners. So you could walk across the street to each corner in Mill Creek and you'd be in a different congressional district. Now, I think this is an example of gerrymandering, to cut up the most populous county and to take away the voice of the one county that has the most Democrats.
Representative Moy, what would you like to see happen in this arena?
Well, I'd like to see some of these cases that are going before the court determined if they followed the law and followed the Constitution of the United States. I think over the history of this country and this state as well, and in other states, you see both sides. It's like, that's gerrymandering, that's gerrymandering. Well, I think if it is, then it's against the law. If it's not, then it's not. And we have redistricting for a purpose, and so we have to go through it every 10 years. And then the lawsuits happen where people think that there has been gerrymandering. And if it goes to the Supreme Court's going to decide those cases, and which will set a precedent for moving forward in the future. So I think it will be good for the Supreme Court to decide what is right and what is not right based on some of these lawsuits that they're going to be listening to.
All right, a hot topic during the week was the banning of books at local schools. Representative Ken Ivory hosting a town hall during the week that we attended and reported on, talking about how the law is being implemented, and in the way they see it, districts that are not in compliance. But this all has to do with sensitive materials. Representative Spackman-Moss, first off, your thoughts on this law and how it's being implemented.
Well, this strikes at the very heart of who I am. I taught English, literature, and writing for over 30 years, high school students. So any attempts to ban books that have been part of the curriculum, or even outside reading in the case of my class, really strikes at the heart of censorship that I think is dangerous, and it's a slippery slope. And when Representative Ivory talks about districts not being in compliance, I don't know what he means by that, because there's a process that bill set up for review. And this is, his assurance to me was this bill would only look at books in school libraries. And I know it's well-intentioned on the part of many parents to have books that are age appropriate in the school library, but it didn't say a parent could complain and then the book is automatically withdrawn from the shelves. That is not how that is supposed to work, and that's what I thought he was implying. These districts, he said some books should just be taken off the shelves, no discussion. Well, to take a passage out of context and not look at the entire book, this is the work of a professional librarian, just as I was a professional teacher, and look at literature as a whole and not individual passages that somebody might find a line or two they object to. This is a very big concern to me and many other teachers that we're going down this road. It's like something back in the 50s, I guess, that I used to read about.
All right, Representative Malloy, your thoughts on this law and how it's being implemented?
Well, I think we're talking about insensitive materials that are not age appropriate, and even pornography. And I've seen some of the materials. It's not just passages that people see in passing. They are graphic images and drawings and that show just graphic pornography, and there's no other way to talk about it. And I don't think those should be in our schools. And so we're not talking about banning books or book burning or removing books, but we're talking about removing insensitive, unage-appropriate content that falls within the confines of insensitive and even graphic pornographic materials. And I've seen some of those, and they are very graphic.
All right.
And so I don't think that has an appropriate place in our schools.
I should have saved more time for this conversation. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but very important insights. Appreciate both of you being here. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.